Let's talk about why super tanks or kaiju watch tanks are not a solution to a format problem, but more or less actually lean into the problem within the role. So that's kind of something I want to talk about today. Hi everybody, my name is Abby. Welcome to the video. I started this video off with a little bit of a bang where, I'm not a fan of super tanks or kaiju watch tanks. Immediately in season 11 when they happened, literally like almost 3 days later, I made a video where I talked about I'm not a fan of this direction. I'm really feel like we're making a big mistake. We're taking the roll down this route, and with the power creep that has happened within the game at the moment, at least in my personal opinion, when it comes to the uncoordinated play that we play on the quick play, stadium, ranked, etc. I personally feel like tank has way too much of control and impact on the game than any other role, to the point that I think they are even like they have even more impact than the support role does. And all the support role has to do is just pick just the most like basic high healing, like AoE sustain, some form of immortality, like just pick anything that can help keep the tank alive. And as DPS, your job is to just play Dead by Daylight and survive from the enemy tank while your tank runs around as the killer that just got giga buffed in Dead by Daylight and is now chasing 4 survivors on the enemy team, trying to blow them up or just outlive anything, right? It's kind of funny how super tank works in Overwatch if you actually think about it. Kind of is Dead by Daylight simulator. Now, anyways, that little joke aside, beyond a more serious note, the reason I want to talk about super tanks is because, look, I personally think it doesn't solve the design space problem where people talked about that, tank in 5v5 has a really bad counter pick problem, right? And okay, sure, in 6v6 there can also be a counter picking problem. For example, if you're playing some random shit like Wrecking Ball and Roadhog into some form of an actual coherent comp in 6v6, which was like back in the day, when we played the Zarya Winston, the double bubble, then of course that comp would fall apart to, these type of compositions and everything. And yes, while there were comps that had or lacked synergy, excuse me, then there were also comps that were building up synergy with one another over time. I also felt like perhaps this new generation of block tanks could have really complemented the Overwatch 1 style of tanks a lot more if they got to exist with them in a balanced slate that was balanced with 6v6 a lot more in mind than 5v5. Unfortunately, somebody's gonna pull one out in the comment and say, well, we have 6v6 in the game now, and yeah, well, the tanks, they kind of function a bit weird in 6v6. They're kind of still playing the same way that they do in 5v5. And to that, I'll say, my friend, they have not balanced 6v6 at all for 4.5 seasons now. And with the start of the next season, it will officially be the 5th season in a row where there has been no dedicated 6v6 balance patch to actually balance out that game mode. So we don't know what a balanced version of current 6v6 would even look like, because over there I would actually argue that double shield is popping up. It certainly doesn't help that the block slop tanks are succeeding like crazy even in the 6v6 game mode. Like right now, Orisa Ram, Orisa Sigma is pretty much the meta tank line, and the reason that they're meta is just I exist. Hazard is also thriving, to be honest, to some degree even better in 6v6 compared to 5v5, because he has the tank synergy. He can kind of work with any of the other meta tanks, and he doesn't have to be limited to more of a dive like map, So the problem when it comes to 5v5, because 5v5 is the core mode, and I want to address it from this perspective. The problem with the 5v5 and leading into the Kaiju watch tank design is you are inadvertently constantly putting more and more stress and responsibilities within the role. One of the things that the tank player base does not like across a lot of the casuals and everything is they don't like the fact that they hold so much weight. This is actually their number one complaint. If you think about it, ignoring like all the other issues, their major complaint is, well, why does the DPS get to have a partner that can help pick up some slack? Why does the support get to have a partner that can pick up some slack? Well, all my responsibilities are inadvertently just given to me, and I have to deal with it or figure it out, right? Now, this is really bad, because if you have a bad tank hero pool, then you're gonna have a really bad time. Let's say you are a main tank player. Good friend of mine, actually my best friend, he's always been a main tank player, and he really doesn't like off tank, right? Whenever he comes over to off tank, none of his skills when it comes to playing main tank transfer over to off tank. He's really good at the 3D chess part of the game. game. And when there is a meta, there is a state of the game where he has to play a lot more 3D chess with Overwatch and a lot less, okay, I survive, I block slop, and then I blow something up. He's not a fan of that gameplay style. And when you try to put a dedicated, let's say, Winston Ryan player, maybe Orisa and Ram, like these are his heroes, you try to put him on characters like Zarya, Sig, and Diva, trust me, it just doesn't work out, right? Like, obviously over time he can learn the role and everything, but the thing is, there's also the fact that it just doesn't fit his preference, because for like 6 years of playing Overwatch 1, his style that he fell in love with was the main tank role. Now you objectively have a hybrid tank role. Like, a lot of the tank roles are just becoming kind of hybrid like, and the problem with this also is we're struggling to see different tank designs also exist within this design space, because it feels like almost every tank has to play the brawl playstyle. Arguably Doomfist, even though he's quote unquote a dive tank, they progressively throughout Overwatch 2's lifespan nerfed his dive playstyle. His dive playstyle is actually what leads you to blowing up, and playing his more brawl focused, very slow, empowered punch bot playstyle is actually where he succeeds. And if you look at Hazard as well, Hazard follows this same idea where, there was a little bit of excitement that, hey, maybe we can play this guy as a dive tank. And it's like, well, no, you can't, because you have to block slop, and then you have to play a slow burn game where you slowly fight it out and then blow somebody up. And if they try to escape, you chase them with your shift. But, it doesn't fit into that traditional brawl dive playstyle of, start a fight, engage, stage a dive with your team, go in, blow up some people here and there, and then progressively steamroll the game from there. That era of Overwatch is really being lost to time, and I don't know if this is the right direction to take the tank role. I personally don't like it. I think giving tank the impact responsibility of basically 2 to 3 people is just not fun. I think there is a world where, of course, like for example, I'm good on tank, right? When I play tank, and I can pretty much objectively play all of them at a pretty decent level. I mean, a master's on the role, right? And I feel it's like sometimes I feel like I'm cheating the game just because of how easy it can be to also counterpick within that role, right? Like, oh, they're playing Ramatra. Well, I can just go Ursa. I can spam the spear on him, and there's absolutely nothing the guy can do about it. And the best part about playing tank, when you have a good hero pool and you're playing into people that I guess maybe learning tank or have a small tank pool, is it's so easy to just counter and steamroll the game, because there's literally nothing the other guy can do about it, because he doesn't know how to play anything else. For example, you're playing into a really good Diva and your tank doesn't know how to play Zarya, or perhaps even play any other tank that knows how to slowly take a fight with Diva. Well, now you just lose the game, because Diva's being allowed to just be wherever she wants, blow up whoever she wants, deny your DPS's value. My god, my Diva is, I know there's a lot of block slop going around, but I feel like Diva doesn't get enough credit for how strong she is too. I really don't like Super Tank. This is the whole point of this video. My point is I think super tanks need to be nerfed. I think you should divide that power a lot more into the DPS role, allow them to take the stress off their tanks, even in the 5v5 format. And currently, the only way the DPS role can do that is if they have just so much strength in their ability to one-shot and shut down a target. And it shouldn't be like that. But honestly, the way I see Overwatch going forward is that they're going to be over-evolving the game and progressively buffing the game. Because even if you look at what happened with hero bans was not an excuse not to properly balance the game. Yet, when it comes to Overwatch, I personally feel like hero bans has been just really poorly implemented in Overwatch, because not only has it been poorly implemented, the hero ban system is actually pretty fair and decent, right? The problem is that the community is misusing it in certain ways, and at least majority of the time, I feel like, well, we just wasted a ban slot. That's not how you're supposed to use it. And number two, a balanced team is supposed to use a hero ban system to perhaps figure out, well, why do people not like playing against this character, or why is this character so strong and they're succeeding that they're getting permabanned? What is it that we can do to tone down this character's level? Actually, what's going on is that they're using it to look at a character that is literally irrelevant, like Sombra, and they're like, yeah, well, we need to rework this since you guys are banning her so much. And then they're looking at characters like Freya, where you can have the entire country unanimously scream at them that we don't like the 2-tap, and then they'll be like, so you want us to nerf the primary fire? And then that's basically the balance of this game, and it's really sad. So that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about, guys, is that, Super Tank, I'm not a fan of it. Like, I know tanks didn't like it if they just outright blew up out of nowhere, but that is always going to be something that is going to stay in the game as long as you are going to give strong breakpoints to tanks and supports. I'm sorry, I cannot defend the idea that DPS need to be to have weaker breakpoints. They are the damage role. They should be able to do strong damage, but giving supports even good damage, and in some cases really high burst damage like Baptiste, Zenyatta, and in some cases where she was meta, like back in the day, Iliari being able to two-tap people, 𝐒𝐿𝐄 being able to two-tap people, right? Then moving on over to, tanks as well, where they, in the Kaiju Watch season, got given even better breakpoints, and then over time got better breakpoints in different abilities and things like that through small buffs here and there. I just feel like that's not fair, because that's exactly how the DPS role begins to lose its identity, because everybody else can do their job but better, and then we're forced to buff the DPS passive, thinking that, well, if we buff the DPS passive, surely the DPS role will be able to compete, and it's not just going to be Freya and Sojourn that are going to thrive. Newsflash, by the way, the only reason Sojourn and Freya are thriving in our meta DPS picks, right, or I guess so Freya is kind of like falling and Tracer's rising, is because they have really, really absurdly strong breakpoints that allows them to be able to compete with the rest of the game. Otherwise, they, like, the rest of the DPS role just cannot compete with the power that comes in the tank and the support role. Anyways, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. I want to hear your thoughts about super tanks, about just the roles and Overwatch in general. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm actually going to continue this discussion throughout these next few days, so there's going to be a lot of discussion videos coming. If you're enjoying content like that, all you have to do is hit like and subscribe. And finally, shout out to the patrons over here. If you want to support the channel, if you want to support the channel financially, all you have to do is check out the Patreon down below. If you want to support the channel for free, like, subscribe, comment, algorithm. That's how all this works. See you in the next one.